أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. This is Khatira number 25, Hope in Raising Good Children. Hope in raising good children. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in the Qur'an, I want you to remember this story and never forget it. I mean, everything in the Qur'an is important. But sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further emphasizes things in the Qur'an by saying, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ. Remember in the book, right? وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِسْمَاعِيل. Remember the story of Ismail. Don't ever let this story be forgotten. One of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala insists that we remember is the story of Maryam radiallahu anha. وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Maryam. Remember in the book Maryam. He is telling you, you commit the story of Maryam to your memory. You never let the passage of time cause you to forget the legacy of Maryam radiallahu anha. And a lot of people remember Maryam because she is the mother of Isa alayhi salam, right? But sometimes we also forget that the legacy of Maryam is an extension of the legacy of her mother. A lot of people don't know that. The legacy of Maryam is the legacy of her mother. Her name was Hannah. Not mentioned in the Quran, it's mentioned in the Bible. But her name was Hannah, and Hannah was married to the father of Maryam, and his name was Imran, right? Maryam abnata Imran. In the Bible, Imran. So Hannah and Imran are married. This is a couple that is not blessed with children. They live in the most difficult community imaginable. It's a community of corruption. It's a community of filth. It's a community of oppression. A community of people that literally murder their own prophets. A community of very corrupt, cruel type of patriarchy where only men are allowed in the temple and women are not even allowed to go to the temple to pray, right? You know, when women are on their monthly cycles, they were considered to be filthy and disgusted. They're abandoned, they're locked up in rooms, and nobody touches them, nobody calls them. They literally would slip food under the door to a woman that is just on her monthly cycle. See how Islam completely changed these corrupt habits of Jahiliyyah, right? That is the type of society that Imran and Hannah were living, and they wanted still, despite all of these challenges, they wanted to dedicate a child to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Hannah became pregnant and she was so ecstatic, the very first thing she did is that she dedicated the baby in her womb. She did not even deliver the baby yet. She dedicated the baby in her womb, thinking that the baby was going to be a boy, right? إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لَكَ مَا فِي بَطْنِي مُحَرَّرًا فَتَقَبَّلْ مِنِّي. She says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord, I dedicate the baby in my womb to you, entirely to you, and to no one else. So Lord, accept this baby from me. The custom was, very righteous families, and there were very few righteous families, they would dedicate their children to basically be in the monasteries, to be ruhban, to be, monks in the monastery, which is a practice that is prohibited in Islam. We don't dedicate ourselves exclusively in the masjid to be monks. We don't have monkship, rahbaniyah. We don't have that in Islam. But the Hebrews, they had this, and it was an accepted practice. So Hannah wanted to dedicate her baby to basically be a servant in the monastery and to volunteer at the monastery. But then she was kind of shocked and she was taken aback because she was blessed with a daughter, right? And then she says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى. A boy is not like a girl. Why? Not because boys are better than girls or anything. It's just because she understands the custom of her people. They won't allow her daughter to go into the temple. They won't allow her daughter to be a servant of God. So she was very disappointed at this, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still accepted Maryam from her as a gift to the Lord Himself. Imagine you're offering something and Allah accepts your gift, right? فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted that beautiful gift and let that gift blossom. She grew into this beautiful, righteous, incredible woman. By the way, despite her society, despite her culture, Despite the corruption that she was being raised in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still let her blossom into this incredibly beautiful girl. And then both mom and dad passed away. So who took custodianship of Maryam? Zakaria, right? Was like an uncle to her. Zakaria alayhi salam. فتقبلها ربها بقبول حسن وأنبتها نباتا حسنا وكفلها زكريا. Zakaria became her custodian. He became her legal guardian. And Zakaria was a prophet of his people. So he decided to use his own influence in order to honor the wish of Hannah. He decided to change the rules, and he allowed Maryam to enter the temple for the first time ever. And she became a servant of God in the temple. And everyone was upset and everyone was dismayed. Remember earlier, they were competing with each other who's going to take custodianship of Maryam, right? And then later on, when Zakaria alayhi salam decided to let her into the temple, everyone in the community got very upset. It was an extremely corrupt community, right? And then, he took her inside the temple. She grew in the temple. And of course, the miracle happened. He entered one day, he saw her having food. He asked her, where did you get this food? She said, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's when he prayed, because he did not have a child either. He prayed and Allah blessed him with Yahya alayhi salam. Now, when Maryam is compared against all the women of humanity, what does the Qur'an say about her? وَفَضَّلْنَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. وَفَضَّلْنَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. We've elevated you above all the women of the world. She was not an ordinary person, and it's not because she was the mother of Jesus. It's because of who she was. Isa alayhi salam came later in that story. Until she reached adulthood, Maryam, radiallahu anha, many scholars, by the way, they would say Maryam alayhi salam, because many scholars, including Imam Tabari, considers Maryam to be a prophet of God, even though she was a woman, right? Compared to all the women of humanity, Maryam alayhi salam was the best of the best. She was above all the other women. Again, despite her culture, despite her society, despite the filth and the corruption that she was raised around, despite her climate. And brothers and sisters, the story of Maryam is a cautionary tale for us, but it's also a source of great hope. That it is possible, despite the difficulties. I mean, we are technically raising our kids in a moral wasteland. Let's be honest, right? This is a moral wasteland where every moral value is twisted and upended. But the story of Maryam teaches us that despite all the difficulties in our environment, there are three factors that determine whether our kids are going to be good kids or not, right? Number one, how the parents are. Remember that. Number two, the village in which the kids are being raised. Number three, the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You put all of these three together under the best circumstances, inshallah ta'ala, you will be raising good kids. I'm not saying that the environment does not play a role. I'm not saying that the climate does not play a role. It does play a role. It does have an impact. But the most profound impact comes from those three things. Who you are as a parent and what you instill in your children and what you are teaching them, right? And the village, the temple, right? That Hannah dedicated her to. And the third one is the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I want to say something here, by the way, because we can stress out about raising our children as parents all we want. That's fine. That's normal. That's healthy. But you cannot be an anxious parent. You know, anxious parenting, have you heard that term before? Anxious parenting is basically parents that are driven by guilt. Mom and dad are very busy. They have to work. And they are good Muslims, but they don't have time to really dedicate, to their children. So they are constantly feeling guilty. So what do? They are constantly shopping around for opportunities. This masjid has a good Sunday school, I'm going to send my kids here. That masjid has a good Qur'an program, I'm going to send my kids here. This guy overseas has a great Arabic program, I'm going to sign up. This imam at this masjid has a good khutbah, I'm going to go attend the khutbah over there. And this masjid has this unique program, I'm going to go attend this program. And so you ask them, which temple, which masjid do you actually belong to? What are they going to say? No, I belong to all of the masajid. They're all my home, the entire Muslim community, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I belong to everyone, which is another way of saying I belong to nothing. I belong to no one. I am committed to no masjid. I don't care. I am just a capitalist. I am a consumer. I am hopping around from one masjid to the other, from one community to the other, like little bees, getting my nectar from this tree and from that flower. It doesn't matter. What matters is what I get and what I get from my money. They've capitalized Islamic education. You're purchasing spirituality. That's what you're doing. Masjid hopping is about purchasing spirituality. It's about you, just your good old capitalism, thinking that you can get everything you want in life with your dime. But that's not how communities are built. You have to ask yourself, what role do I play in the production of those services? What role do I play in the building of a masjid, in the building of a community, in the maintenance of a temple? Remember, the very first thing that Hannah did is that she dedicated the baby in her womb to the temple. Ya Allah, take this baby, first even born. And she selected that one temple where Zakaria alayhi salam was the Imam. Pay attention to the details, right? You have to focus on building vertically and creating a healthy village, a healthy community that your kids are going to actually benefit from. You are doing it wrong if you are traveling from one little place to the other. You're doing it wrong. You are weakening all of these masajid because you are just a consumer as opposed to a producer of those services, right? I digress a little bit. That's not the point of the khatira. The point of the khatira is that being stressed about raising our children as healthy, being anxious parents, that is very, very unhealthy. And you need to check yourself if you're an anxious parent, right? But coming back to the story, it leads us to a beautiful ayah in the Qur'an that brings so much comfort in the heart, so much relief, so much hope. In Surah Al-Tur, ayah number 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُمْ بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَمَا أَلَتْنَاهُمْ مِنْ عَمَلِهِمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Those who have believed and their offspring after them followed in the same faith, Allah says, I will make sure that they are united together in Jannah. They will be together. The earlier generation and the following generation, they will be together, and I will never deprive them of any of their good deeds. SubhanAllah. The hope here, brothers and sisters, comes from the fact that this ayah turns all the stress about parenting in modern times on its back. Why? Because it teaches you that faith is stronger than the passage of time, it's stronger than the climate, it's stronger than the environment, it's stronger than death itself. If you as a parent, you're good and strong in your faith and you're leading by example, and if you are attaching yourself and your kids to the village, the temple, the masjid, and you become an instrument in the building of that community, and if you make dua day and night for the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be granted. And I want to give you some conditions in order for this to work, because you're thinking, well, this sounds too easy. It's too good to be true. Well, yeah, perhaps. Because there are conditions to be met, right? Before you even get married, you have to ask yourself, why am I getting married? What's the point of getting married? Am I paying just too much taxes and I need to file jointly because I have to cut down on my tax liabilities? Like, why are you getting married? You have to ask yourself. And if you are married, you have to ask yourself, why am I bringing children to the world? Is it just a matter of pride? It's because my cousins have 5 kids, so I need to have 5 kids. Like, why are you bringing children to the world if you don't plan to nurture them properly, right? And let's say that you are married and you have children. You need to ask yourself, am I willing to do what Hannah did and actually dedicate my child to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yes, we don't have monkship in Islam, but will I be able to dedicate my child to Allah, to be at the masjid, and I'll be with them at the masjid and apply myself and volunteer and put my hours and put my money and put my sweat into building the temple, the village, the masjid, the community that I need for the health of my children or not? Are you raising citizens of the world, or are you raising companions of the akhirah? What citizens of this dunya? Or are we companions of paradise? What are we supposed to be? Are you raising your child to focus on career and money and upper hand and power and being cool and materialism and driving the nicest cars and having the biggest house, money, 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 that's all you care about? Or are you raising them to be children of the akhirah? Be honest before you gamble with the life of an innocent soul and bring a child to the world and then do nothing to raise them properly. And then when they're lost at the age of 18, you come complaining to us, despite all of our warnings, despite all the signs and the red flags that you've seen, you did nothing. So be honest with yourself before you bring children to suffer in the world. Are you doing your part or not? Are you being a role model? Do you lead by example? Are you at the forefront? Or are you a marginal father or a marginal mother, unsophisticated, oblivious? You don't understand the world. You don't understand culture. Your kids talk to you and they tell you what's going on at school, and you have no idea what they're sharing with you. And your heart and your mind are attached to some overseas experience that you're not able to get out of your system. You've been here for 35 years, but your heart and mind are still somewhere else. And you're letting this society destroy your children. And then you complain, it's the climate. It's not the climate. Let's be honest, it's not the climate, it's you. You're responsible for what happened to your children because you are not taking the honest, true steps in order to actually protect them. 3, who are you? And what is the village in which your children are being raised? And are you making dua for the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? You've heard the ayah in Surah Al-Furqan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the qualities of the believers, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, on behalf of the believers, right? They ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make their spouses and their children قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ, right? In the ayah. مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. Lord, make from our spouses and our offspring comfort to the eyes. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to ask Allah to grant you the best spouse, the most amazing wife, the most amazing husband. It's easy to ask Allah to grant you the most beautiful, incredible children, but what are you in the end? Do you actually deserve them or not? And that's why the end of the ayah, it says what? وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Make us, Lord, now that we're praying for good spouses and good children, make us لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا, foremost among the righteous, leaders of the righteous. Are you a leader of the righteous? When you look at the mirror, do you see a leader of the righteous? When your kids see you, do they see a leader of the righteous? Do you see you as a role model, making the needed sacrifices, being out there, truly leading by example? What do they see? This is what matters. You want to raise your good kids in this very difficult climate. Don't blame the climate. Don't blame the culture. The Qur'an repeatedly. And I'll tell you one last story before I end, right? Hajar radiallahu anha. Where did they live? Where is she from? Where did Hajar come from? She's from Egypt, right? She married Ibrahim alayhi salam. Where did Ibrahim alayhi salam come from? He comes from Iraq, right? So you have this Egyptian woman that marries an Iraqi guy, right? It's not an unusual story. And then they have a child. And where is their child being raised? In Mecca. Amongst which type of people? Among the Arabs, right? So you have this, by the way, the Iraqis and the Egyptians at that time, they were not Arab, right? They spoke very different languages, they had extremely different cultures. So you have this Iraqi guy who marries an Egyptian woman, and then they give birth to a child, and that child is raised in Mecca amongst the Arabs, right? Was dad involved in the story? Occasionally, but who actually raised Ismail? His mom. Ismail was raised by a single mother in Mecca. She didn't understand the language, she didn't understand the culture, is the most alien thing to them, right? And she works as hard as possible, and she attaches her kid to one of the most powerful families of that community, and that association gave rise to what the leader of Jurhum, the tribe, the most important tribe in Mecca, ended up offering his daughter to Ismail alayhi salam. And Ismail became the father of the Arabs. He became one of the greatest contributors to his time. Don't tell me that his story is different than ours, right? It's in your hands and it's in Allah's hands, but you have to have the right vision about raising children, again, in this moral wasteland that's called our country. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our children, to protect our faith. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our hearts. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our resolve as we muscle our way through the challenges of this dunya. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that each and every one of us will be the best influence on our kids. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will be the best role models for our kids. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that as we enter Jannah, our kids will be holding hands with us and we enter paradise together. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم.